Hello, my name is Ilona and today is Tuesday, July 18th, 2023 and I just did my Dutch video and it was a very long video because there was so much information. So I hope I'll be able to do the same thing in this video. I hope I'll be able to streamline things because there's so much information. This is about The Sound of Freedom, the movie. And I just want to start with, of course, that there are two ways of looking at this thing, Sound of Freedom. Some people see this as, awareness. People are finally starting to see what's going on with the children, the horrific things that are happening. On the other side, there are many dark energies associated with this movie. And I'm going to get into this. So people like, no, this has a completely different agenda. We shouldn't watch this movie. They just want to use this in another way. So I just wanted to take a look at this. And I'm also going to take a look at the cards at the end of this video. But first I want to start with a Substack that I found. And this is very interesting. This is from Anon Famous Threads. And this is called the Tim Ballard Rabbit Hole. And this is really, this is from July 15th, 2023. And it's really substantial with the information about the people that actually invested in this movie. And of course, now they're saying that Glenn Beck has something to do with it. But apparently originally said by Tim Ballard himself, John Paul de Georgia and Carlos Slim were large investors. And Carlos Slim has donated $100 million to the Clinton Foundation in 2007. So that should tell you a little bit about him. And of course, Paul de Georgia, they even go into that. It's really very, very thorough. And so much information in this Substack, and I really recommend just reading it and of course see what resonates with you or not. And very interesting thing. Also, the actor working Eduardo for Sound of Music also is connected to John Paul de Georgia and is connected to all kinds of foundations and organizations that is connected to other people in Hollywood. And it's fascinating to read. But I just want to focus on a few things because otherwise this is going to become a very long video. And I don't like very long videos. I like to keep it as short as possible. Let's see. There is something about the production that actually took over this film. So Angel Studios, the creators of The Chosen and The Sound of Freedom. The Harmon brothers are the founders of the Angel Studios, and they are part of the Church of the Latter. Let's see, yeah, the Church of the Latter Days, if I'm not mistaken. That's not the. Let's see if I can find the Church of the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So they're Mormons. It's very interesting, and of course they will, in their productions, you can see the Mormon influences, and there are some dark energies with that, unfortunately, as well. But I'll leave that, open because that is a completely different discussion. And also very interesting, they'll even talk about certain people working with the Chosen, and that apparently the actor that plays Jesus, Jonathan Roumie, is a member of the Knights Templar. And not only that, but also Tim Ballard is apparently a member of the Knights Templar. And this in Templar times, they even put a picture there. It says his name, Timothy Blaine Ballard. Now I looked up on his Wikipedia page, I couldn't find his full name is Timothy Blaine Ballard, but he has a son named Blaine Ballard. So I have a feeling that this is the same person. So he is part of the Templar times, or of the order, the Sovereign Military Order Temple of Jerusalem. And Tim Ballard and executive producer of Sound of Freedom, Paul Hutchinson. So there are dark energies there. You cannot deny that. Also, Jim Caviezel has a picture of him that he has the symbol of the Jerusalem cross on his necklace. And this is just so much information. I really recommend just reading it and see what feels right to you or not. Ultimately, you have to make your own decision. It also goes into his family of Tim Ballard and his brother and all kinds of connections. It is very interesting to read. So let's see. I just have to kind of figure out where I'm going now. Like I said, I just got my Dutch video ready and there's just so much that's like, all right, what do I want to talk about? Well, I want to look at Sound of Freedom, and I'm going to look at it more from perspective of what does this movie bring. I understand that people, of course, with all these connections, look at it in a very dark way, like dark energies. Interesting is that the media, because it's been shelved, it was finished in 2018 and the rights actually got in the hands of Disney. And I even have a fact checker that checked this, and that is correct, that they bought 20th Century Fox film in 2019 and they received the rights of Sound of Freedom and they didn't do anything with it. So Disney just shelved it, which is interesting because if you really look at Hollywood media, if they want something pushed, they will, it will be brought out in the media. We've had the movie Cuties a couple of years ago, French movie that was really about looking at young girls in a certain way. I will not get into it too much, but it's a very strange movie. And it was brought by Hollywood like, this is fantastic, people should see this. And it really was about normalizing. I believe it was on Netflix, but it was really strange, the amount of attention it got from the media and from Hollywood. And you can see now that actually this movie is completely pushed to the side by the media. The media are on top of it. Rolling Stones are against this movie. I even found an article on Jezebel about this Sound of Freedom is an anti-child, of course has to do with the children, fantasy fit for certain theories, and then again connected to the 17th letter of the alphabet, which is very interesting because Tim Ballard is mentioned in the postings of this letter. And the interesting part is that in the Substack it shows that Ballard is actually red, which is so the name Ballard is red from Tim Ballard. So that's interesting, and this is about the hunters become the hunted. And I actually looked it up myself through an online where you can see all the postings, and I couldn't find that name was red. So I'm not sure, maybe the copy I saw wasn't correct, or maybe there was something else going on, but it's very, very interesting that I actually found where all the postings are from this letter, but there's not it's not red in that part, but on their side they show it as having it red, so it could mean something else. I'll just leave it at that, but I thought it was very interesting. So there is a connection. And of course, he was also appointed by Mr. T for a certain committee to join in 1990, if I'm not 2019. He was appointed to the White House Public-Private Partnership Advisory Council to end human, trading and stuff like that. So that was very interesting. So he was actually appointed by Mr. T. Like I said, it's also very possible with dark energies that someone changes. I also shared a message this morning from Storm Rider where he mentions that Hollywood is collapsing. They've got this strike going on, which really is just a false flag because a lot of things are going to come out concerning things with children, concerning certain actors, but also certain actors are moving away and are going to speak out about this, like most likely Mel Gibson spoke out about this. But in this Substack you can also see a lot of picture from Mel Gibson. I do believe he has dark energies, and of course if you really want to become very big in Hollywood, you are connected in one way or another through these dark energies. But Mel Gibson and Jim Caviezel, who of course worked together on The Passion of the Christ, were completely blackballed in Hollywood, which is very interesting. So they were completely silenced, they couldn't get any jobs. And it's just interesting to see. Could be part of the divide and conquer, of course, that they have going on, the dark energies, to keep people, you know, in all kinds of groups and pitted against each other. But it's also very possible that they were saying things that were just not very welcome in Hollywood. And I've read something about Jim Caviezel that he wanted, in some intimate scene he had to do with Jennifer Lopez, he wanted to wear pants and he wanted to wear a shirt, and she had to wear a shirt because that's not what he wanted, because he was married and his Catholic beliefs. So it's very interesting to see. That doesn't fit, of course, with the Hollywood way of looking at things, especially normalizing certain behavior. So that's very interesting to see. So this movie is really being pushed into this direction of certain theories, and that it's a whack job and something. But the interesting thing is that people are starting to see this. This is about children. This is about safety of children. And suddenly this media has a problem with that. Maybe they're the problem. And I'm also going to share a review. Someone on YouTube, just, you know, you have a lot of people there working independently, you know, not with the media, not with Disney or a big company, doing their own thing against all this agenda they're pushing, and actually finally starting to hear about this movie, never heard about it, and started to pay attention to this. So there's an entire movement going on from other directions, not through the media, not through the Hollywood, not through their means, but through people just talking about this. And it's just beautiful to see, and realizing that the media are against it. And again, Jim Caviezel, Tim Ballard, I'm going to share a few clips as well, talking about this stuff that's substance made from children, people are not aware of, talking about Epstein and the connection with the media, talking about what's going on with the border, talking about all these things that people are now seeing. They're talking on Fox News, they are on podcasts, people that want to have them. I'm also going to share a podcast they made with Jordan Peterson, which I thought was very interesting. Of course, keep an open mind, see if it resonates with you or not, but these are very interesting developments happening. And that's how I see this movie, that it creates awareness, it shows things, it brings awareness of what's going on. A lot of people were completely unaware of this. Of course, this is now in the States. Hopefully it will be placed on Twitter so I can see it as well. I haven't seen it, but I've heard a lot of things about it. And I fully understand that people on the other side, you know, are like, well, why aren't they talking about the elite? Why aren't they talking about the politicians? Why aren't they? I fully understand it, but you have to bring it in bits and pieces. And this is creating such an awareness that I'm, of course, going to look at the energy. But to me, it feels like this just opens things up, and this has already been made in 2018, which is brilliant because it doesn't align with, of course, the postings of a certain letter of the, you know, the 17th letter of the alphabet, because it wasn't really, it was already done before that happened, if I'm not mistaken. It started in 2018, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that. So this movie was already made. So the connection is interesting. And of course, Tim Ballard and Jim Caviezel are distancing themselves because, well, it's not going to help them case to open up to as many people as possible. But in the meantime, they are talking about that substance which is going on with children. Very important that people are starting to talk about that. What's really happening with children at the islands, that there are more than one island. Epstein wasn't the only island. Things like that, and that the media is just covering things up. It's very interesting that it's now brought out. I'm just going to see if I've kind of mentioned the things I wanted to talk about. Also, I thought it was very interesting that I saw that Tim Ballard actually stepped down as CEO of the Operation Underground Railroad. That was before the movie came out, if I'm not mistaken. So that was very interesting as well. So let's see if I've talked about most of the things I wanted to mention. I've mentioned, of course, the posting. The last thing I wanted to say, and I fully understand that people are making a connection, although I haven't seen the connection yet, but it's from the Freemasons from Georgia are now coming out with a pamphlet for G.A. Chip. And this is about protecting your child. It's always about protecting your child. The Georgia Child Identification Program. And this, of course, sounds like they're going to chip your child. Well, in this pamphlet, that's not what they're talking about, actually. They just want all kinds of identification, like things from the dentist's, DNA of your child, which they obviously want as well. They want the DNA. But they all want this as like a kit. So if your child goes missing, they have all this information of your child. So they're not talking about chipping yet. But they are Freemasons. Let's face it. The Dark Energies wants, of course, everyone chipped, everyone transhuman, human and technology together. So ultimately, that is what they're programming by calling it GA chip. They haven't done that by accident. They are already programming it. But the pamphlet is only about the identification. And I couldn't find any connection, beside, of course, the Dark Energies connection, between Tim Ballard and Jim Caviezel and this pamphlet. I haven't found it. So if you have, please send it to me, because they're not talking about that. They haven't spoken about chipping your child, and I do not think people want that. But it's interesting. So I can fully understand that, of course, like, well, this movie is meant to get you to chip your child. I don't think people are going to do that. But I do understand the connection, but I couldn't find a connection that Tim Ballard or Jim Caviezel or anyone from the movie is talking specifically about this pamphlet or about this program. But the program yet is about identification and not yet about chip, but obviously that it's aimed at that, especially with the Freemasons behind that. But I wanted to talk about that as well. Thought it was interesting, and it's also in the Substack, and I will put a link to something else I found about the GA Georgia chip org. It's all very interesting. So I'll just see if I've talked about everything. Something very interesting as well is that the people in the media are now calling out other media. So Bloomberg writer trashing Sound of Freedom connected to a certain group, PD group. And this is very interesting that this is coming out as well. So the person who wrote this Bloomberg opinion piece is leftic activist Noah Berletsky, if I'm not mistaken. He was the spokesperson for MAP, Minor Attracted Person Advocacy. Oh, I'm sorry, problem with pronouncing it. But the group is called Prostasia, and it's really about advocating for minor attracted person. And this is interesting because I looked at this Prostasia Foundation, and they have a MAP Support Club partnership. And this is about preventing, and this is about the safety of children. But we're not going to call them PDs anymore. No, we're going to call them MAPs. They are minor attracted persons, because it's softer and it's not so, how to say this, with a morality attached to it. It's nice and fluffy. And there is also in the EU, in the European Union, a push to start talking about people as MAPs. I'll talk about that in another video, otherwise it just gets completely out of hand. But that's interesting that people are being called out now in the media, showing what their ties are, showing that they have a completely different agenda. And it's kind of all connected with children, and especially this MAPS support group. But this Prostasia brings it as if they are protecting children. And that's, of course, what they all do. They have this, how to say this, mantle of kindness, and they want to help people, but in the meantime it's rotten to the core. But it's very suitable with the dark energies, and it's good that people are calling them out and people are seeing the connections made, that wait a minute, this person wants to promote this or advocate for these people. What is going on? Well, of course he's going to be against this movie. And then, like I said, so many things are mentioned by Tim Ballard also, that the PDs are salivating with all these media outlets attacking this movie because, of course, they want to normalize it. He's talking about the agenda being pushed to normalize these things, and that Hollywood is not happy, the media is not happy. Disney obviously is not happy. And of course, the part that they've been shelving this movie says something about their agendas and really where they're focused at. And right now, let's face it, it's burning in Hollywood and Disney is completely collapsing, thankfully, because let's face it, there are so many things pushed through Disney programming, things going on behind the scene, series with children. It's just awful and it's all going to come out. But I wanted to take a look at the card reading I did, and the feeling I am getting with this Sound of Freedom and the energy is that it's very possible this is done by dark energies. It has dark energy connections, but people can change. It can be used for something else. And I think it's done on purpose that this movie was shelved, first of all, by Disney. So that really shows right now, why did it take so long? It's all kinds of questions, of course, are now being asked. It was done before the letter of the alphabet, certain letter. So it's very interesting. They cannot connect it with the theories. And let's face it, if it came out in 2018, it would have not had the impact it has now. People are more aware about what's going on. They are more aware. Things are coming out now. It's collapsing. What happened the past 3 years through people, changing perspective to governments, to organizations, it's all coming out now. So I see this as a step to understanding what's going on, new directions. People are now aware of what's going on, at least more and more. I think if you would have just told them everything, you know, that's known in the independent media and in the truther community, people would reject it. It's too fast from 1 to 100 right away. I think you need to go from 1 to 50 first, and then you can take the other steps to get to 100, to get people to understand what's really truly going on. And this just opens up people's minds. It's a movement. It's very interesting to see. But the first card I've got was the Justice card. The card for the central is the King of Pentacles. Got the 10 of Pentacles in the past, and I've got the Hermit underneath the central card. And for the future, the near future, is the 4 of Cups and the 9 of Pentacles. I got an extra card to clarify, and I do think dark energies are attached to this movie, and they have been pushing away this movie. Maybe it was like a tax write-off. They do that. Let's face it. The entire movie industry is a perfect way of getting rid of certain money, or, you know, change things, play the game, so to speak, financially. So it's very possible they just saw this as an opportunity to, of course, take over this movie, bring in, all kinds of money, and then shelf it, and no one's ever going to hear about it. So I do believe there is dark energies attached to it. But justice is coming. I think the white hats took this. And it's very likely that Tim and Jim could change their perspective, could have insights, or gotten insights, or it's all possible. So just like I look at Elon Musk, that he is from dark energies, but it's very likely now that he is following a certain agenda, maybe voluntarily, maybe not so voluntarily. And it's possible that with Jim Caviezel and Tim Ballard, it's the same thing going. So I think the Whiteheads are using this to bring justice, to show people what's been going on. And this is about the children. This is about protecting the children. And you have to bring it in stages. There's already connections made with Epstein. And more things are going to come out with Epstein. So really, this just puts things in motion. Like I said, you can't just get everything out. A lot of people are not ready for that yet. They won't be able to wrap their minds around this. They are capable of wrapping their minds around this, starting to think about this, and then when other information is coming out that this, of course, is happening on such a large scale. There is a documentary coming out with also from Tim Ballard about a Dutch PD caught in Mexico, if not mistaken, about the Ukraine connection. It's all coming together, and that's what this is about. It's all coming together. It's all like a plan working out. So people are becoming aware, like, wait a minute. So, hey, there's a connection there. The media are trying to get rid of this movie. Why would you want to get rid of a movie this important about such a sensitive subject? What are they hiding? Why are people having these opinion pieces connected to like a map Support group. What is a map? Why is it called a map? Isn't it a PD? Things like that. It connects the dots. And of course, not everyone is going to get it, but the group is growing. And like I said, it's in America. So many people are watching it, and more people are watching it. And they really are trying to push this. They're getting rid of this movie. AC's not working in cinemas. People get refunds for the tickets that they didn't ask for. They really are trying to sabotage this movie. That should tell you something about what is going on. They don't want this to get out, and people are, of course, noticing this. This is experiencing this. So it's about returning to ourselves and finding answers in ourselves and realizing what is really truly going on. And ultimately, people are fed up with this. People do not accept anymore what the media is giving them, Hollywood is giving them, governments are giving them. It's really moving into an independent path. And I think that is so important that people are starting to see this, maybe even start getting involved in things locally to start working and helping children, because this is about the children. This is about the safety of the children, and this what this war is all about. It is a spiritual war, but ultimately it is about the children. That's why this is so important. I'd like to leave it at this and hope to see you in another video. Bye.